Injured by a security guard or bouncer. Here's what you need to know. A security guard or bouncer may be liable for injuring you, regardless of whether their actions were intentional, as a result of negligence or accidental. Injuries caused by bouncers or security guards can take place at events, in stores, at a mall, or many other locations. Bouncers and security guards do have the authority to protect people from violent and unruly behavior, and they can eject you from a premises, but they need to do so without causing injury. But what should you do if you have been injured by a bouncer or security guard? We're going to take a look at this now. Intentional torts, assault, and battery. Bouncers and security guards are likely to commit intentional torts. In fact, they are more likely than any other employee to do this. This is because part of their job involves using physical force. However, the amount of force that they use should be reasonable, and not in the least bit excessive. Unfortunately, there is a very fine line between reasonable force and that which may be deemed excessive. Intentional torts. Intentional torts are known as civil wrongs, and the actions involved are committed purposefully. Intentional torts frequently take place against bouncers and security guards. However, on occasion they may also be guilty of committing an intentional tort. Assault. Assault occurs when a bouncer or security guard deliberately or intentionally puts someone in harm's way. The individual does not need to be physically harmed, but they can feel or be threatened with harmful physical actions. Battery. An assault will become battery when physical contact is made. For example, when someone raises their fist but does not make contact, that is known as assault. However, when the fist comes into contact with the body, that is when it is known as battery. The difficulty of assault and battery cases. As previously mentioned, bouncers and security guards do have the authority to protect people from violent and unruly behavior, and they can eject you from a premises, but they need to do so without causing injury. The amount of physical force that is needed to eject someone or restrain them is not always clear. As difficult as these cases may be, the court will consider whether reasonable force was used, or if it exceeded what is deemed necessary. The court will also consider whether violence or the threat of violence was reasonable, or if it exceeded what is deemed necessary. If it is found that the bouncer or security guard used excessive force, they may be held liable. False imprisonment. False imprisonment can be defined as the intentional restriction of another person's freedom. False imprisonment is similar to false arrest. Bouncer or security guards who detain shoppers or bar or club patrons can be found liable of false imprisonment. However, the law can be quite flexible in cases such as these, but if you were falsely imprisoned and excessive restraint was used against you, the security guard or bouncer may be found liable. Negligence and injuries. While bouncers and security guards should conduct themselves in a non-negligent way, they could find themselves on the receiving end of a personal injury claim if their actions were negligent. Bouncers and security guards have a duty to act in a particular way, and in a particular manner. If it is found that they breached their duty, caused damage or injury to another person, they may be found negligent. It is irrelevant if they intended to cause harm or damage, as they could still be found negligent, just as they could be found negligent if they were reckless, careless, or had a minor accident. Bouncers and security guards are charged with conducting themselves in a reasonable and safe manner whilst also keeping the environment, such as the bar or store, reasonably safe. The actions of bouncers and security guards and the way they conduct themselves can be open to different interpretations. However, most states accept that they should use a reasonable amount of force while maintaining the peace in the areas they work in. When violence is used, most of us at one time or another have seen someone being ejected from a bar. This process is likely to involve an individual bouncer or security guard, or a group of them. It is their job to push or carry the individual to the exit, and reasonable force should be used, especially when the individual is intoxicated. There are occasions when bouncers or security guards have to deal with someone violent. On these occasions it may be necessary for bouncers and security guards to defend themselves using perhaps a little more force in order to restrain someone. When accidents happen. Accidents occasionally occur, and this can make a personal injury claim a lot more complicated. Let's imagine that someone is seen shoplifting. The security guard approaches the individual and attempts to take them to the back of the store. The shoplifter is drunk and is finding it hard to maintain their balance, and when the security guard guides them into a chair in an office, the individual loses balances and hits his head against the wall, causing a tear in his skin and subsequent bleeding. The wounded individual may argue that he hurt his head as a result of the security guard's force. Someone using reasonable force and acting in a reasonable manner may realize that they were drunk and therefore should have prevented the fall. It can be hard to prove that the security guard was negligent in this instant, particularly because the injured person was engaging in bad behavior before they were injured. While many juries tend to have little sympathy for bouncers and security guards, it seems they don't have much sympathy for drunk people who have behaved badly either. When the employer is found liable, bouncers and security guards are occasionally employed by the owner of the location where they work. It is therefore entirely possible that the owner of the venue/store may be found liable for injuries that someone has sustained. Some state laws do vary when it comes to considering how they may be held liable. However, some employers may be considered vicariously liable. In such states, when a bouncer or security guard that they hire commits an act that is deemed to be so bad and beyond their duties, the employer cannot be held accountable for it. In some cases, the victim of the bad treatment may allege that the bouncer or security guard had not been trained properly, and if this is found to be true, the employer may be found liable. If you have been injured by a security guard or bouncer, please speak to a personal injury lawyer as soon as you can.